thank you all for joining our webinar. And today we're going to be looking at navigating EU sustainability regulations, a guide for destinations. So some of you will have seen that we launched a white paper last week or the week before now. And some of you may have downloaded that. We'll share the link with you if you haven't had a read of that already. But this will help go through some of the questions and the detail behind all of that for you today. And we're really excited to hear your questions as well. So we want you to be really interactive with our session today. And we're absolutely delighted to introduce our speakers. So we have 4 amazing speakers for you this afternoon. We have Antonia, who is our EU Projects and Public Policy Manager here at GDS-Movement. We're delighted to welcome Teodora Marinska, who's the COO and Head of Public Affairs from the European Travel Commission. Guy Bigwood, who many of you will already know, our Chief Executive and Chief Change Maker at the GDS-Movement. And we're also delighted to welcome Lisa Kokarinen, who's Head of Sustainable Development at Visit Finland, to give you that National Tourism Office perspective. So thank you so much to all of our speakers for joining us today. Here's our agenda. We've got a lot to get through in just a very short space of time, so I'll be very brief. We're going to be looking at the European Travel Commission Sustainability Agenda. We'll then go through with Antonia and Guy, our guide to the new EU regulations. And finally, we'll hear from Lisa with that NTO perspective from Visit Finland. And we would really welcome your questions throughout. So please use the chat function to put any questions that you have for any of our speakers. And we'll have time within the presentation, after each presentation, to take a couple of questions live to the speakers as well. The session will be recorded and you'll receive this via email. As I mentioned, use the chat box, put your hand up. There's a virtual hand you can pop up. And please do feel free to use any of the reactions on Zoom as well. We always like to keep it interactive. So for some of you, this may be the first time you have joined one of our Feeling the Pulse webinars. So welcome to our wonderful family. I'll just give you a really brief introduction to who we are at the GDS-Movement. We are an international change agency. We're here to help catalyse socio-economic and environmental transformation in cities and regions across the world. And the way we do this is by helping develop the right mindsets, providing skill sets and tool sets to help support destinations, events and organisations. So we're here to work with you on transforming your place for good. Now, before we get started and hand over to the speakers, we thought it'd be really great to hear from you. So we have a question for you. We're going to do a very quick poll. We only have one question. And it's, how confident do you feel about your own and your organisation's ability to prepare for and comply with relevant upcoming EU sustainability regulations? So we've got a scale of 1 to 5. It should have popped up on your screen. And 1 is not confident at all. And 5 is extremely confident. So let's see. So that should have popped up on your screen. So you can click one of those options. And then hopefully Julia will be able to see all of the results coming through.
I'm already seeing the results coming through, so I know that you're voting. We'll give it some more seconds. I must say, Jenny, I already see someone who voted that they're extremely confident. So even though this is an anonymous poll, I highly suggest this person to share their secrets in the chat.
Amazing.
All right, I think we have a lot of votes already, and I'll share the results.
Interesting. Oh, yes. So, yes, we do have one person there who is extremely confident. Please, yes, spill all of your secrets and share that great knowledge with everyone. That would be brilliant. And it's really actually quite good to see that, we've got some people there at 3s and 4s who have, obviously been working on this and looking into it. So hopefully, we can navigate our way through all of this together. But thank you very much for sharing those insights. And I am going to hand over to Theodora.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good afternoon from a very sunny Brussels today. And I would like to give you all a warm welcome on behalf of the European Travel Commission. Starting with who we actually are, on the next slide, we are the umbrella organization of the National Tourism Boards of the European countries. And we've been around for more than 75 years, and we've been supporting our members with research, marketing activities, and advocating for a better tourism sector across Europe. And of course, sustainability has always been part of our agenda. It's embedded in our mission statement, and it's been a focus for us since the beginning. Naturally, our environmental sustainability agenda has grown a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. Our first report on climate change and tourism was published already in 2018. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that all these sustainability milestones for ETC, you can see that considerable part of our research have been focusing on capacity building for sustainable destinations. And in 2023, in 2022, we signed the Glasgow Declaration, and the next year we published our Climate Action Plan. And as part of the implementation of the Climate Action Plan, we also created a working group of sustainability experts across our membership from all ETC member NTOs. We called it Chapter Earth, as they are the think tank responsible for climate action and sustainability. They were really instrumental in revising and expanding the paper that we published together with the GDS-Movement that we are going to be discussing today. So I would like to take this occasion for thank them for that, for being with us today in the audience, and to Lisa, who is one of our members, who is also going to be one of our speakers. It's truly an amazing group to be leading, and it's a real pleasure to work with all of them. What the evolution in the ETC mandate towards sustainability and towards focusing much more on that shows is also that the role of destination managers has grown tremendously in recent years. And now it includes the crucial responsibility of greening the tourism activity and ensuring it brings benefit to the local community and the environment. And what we've learned is that DMOs are best positioned to take a holistic approach towards the tourism ecosystem, and governments and communities now expect them to lead tourism sector towards a path that prioritizes people, places, and the planet over mere profitability. So, of course, this responsibility brings along many challenges, and one of them is the compliance with the very ambitious EU Green Agenda and all the regulations that it imposes on the tourism players. We hope that the paper that was released will be helping destination managers fulfill this mission. And we are open and eager to receive feedback on it, and especially your feedback as destinations on whether this study can be broadened or improved in any way. So please reach out with questions. Next slide, please. I would like to point out a couple of actions that are really interesting for destinations and destination managers from the ETC work this year. A couple of months ago, we published a climate action planning guide for destinations. It's a step-by-step approach completed with templates on how to draft your climate action plan. It's available as long as, together with all the other research mentioned on the previous slide, free of charge on the ETC website. Here is a direct link, so please use it. We would also like to invite you to check out the ETC and EURail Rail Tourism Awards that showcase campaigns highlighting train travel as a sustainable way to explore Europe. And if you have a campaign going on recently completed that focuses on rail, please apply. We are really looking to discover those initiatives and to showcase them. Lastly, next year we will be publishing a report on Europe's tourism emissions, which we hope will bring more clarity for climate action across the European continent. Last slide, please. Here is my email. Please, as I said, reach out. Let's keep the conversation going and join our quest for better tourism future in Europe and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Teodora. What a great introduction. Teodora is going to stay with us as long as she can, but she may not be here at the very end. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat and we can have a look at them as it goes on. But thank you so much. And now it's over to Antonia and Guy to take up the next section.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Thank you very much, Teodora. It's been wonderful working on this with you and some of the other projects we've been working on this year, which will come to light soon. Good afternoon, good morning to all of you out there. It's great to see so many friendly faces. Let's get on with this. Let's have a look at this. So let's step back a little bit. Most of you from the EU I can see, but there's a few of you from elsewhere. And the sustainability was set as a key agenda. And like the European Green Deal was the name given to this very progressive European agenda to really use sustainability as a way to shape and almost transform the European economy into a much more modern, resource efficient and competitive economy. And it was seen that this was a massive economic opportunity for Europe. And that was the direction, right? There's a few headwinds at the moment, but that's still very much the direction of the European Commission. And this is shaping everything. This is really a master agreement which is shaping everything. We can see that in how DMOs in Europe are changing. Right? When we first asked this question in the first index, which was this Nordic index in 2010, 5% of destinations had a sustainability strategy. 2020, it was 56%. This year or last year it was 82%, and we're going to have a higher number this year, I'm sure. So, you know, in that role, especially with European destinations, we're aligning to the EU agenda, and there's a lot of support and amazing stuff coming out, which we heard from the EU yesterday in yesterday's webinar. But not all the work we do is believed. Surprise, surprise, there's a few people that are skeptical of green claims and our little environmental product claims and our statements and our stories. So in a big piece of work by trip.com, they went out and assessed this, and they found that 32% of consumers, of visitors, actually doubt the authenticity of claims. When the EU went and did this, and not in tourism, this was just across everything, they looked at 2,000 claims and found 53% of those were vague, misleading, unfounded. 40% of those were unsubstantiated. Surprise, surprise. And I'm sure you've seen some of those claims. Things like, we have eco-friendly green practices. What the hell does that mean? Or you see things like we are amazing, our cruise ships are zero waste. That's brilliant, isn't it? Doesn't talk about all the sulfates throwing up into the atmosphere. Or things like our fridges are CFC free when CFCs were banned years ago. Or you see some things, you must have seen this one, is our agency is 100% sustainable because we offset all of our emissions. It doesn't matter about everything else, we're just using offsetting to cut this. Or our hotel is so sustainable, we certify it with our own eco label. So it's not surprising people are a little bit dubious about this. And so the EU decided to do something about this. They realized this is key. Trust is key in the future of the sustainability program. So there's a lot of kind of work being done on this in terms of reporting, in terms of green claims, in terms of communication. And so we, like probably many of you, were totally confused about all of this. We didn't know what was going on. We talked to everyone. It was confusing. And so we thought, well, the best way to really understand this is to write a report about it. So we spent the last year talking to a lot of people, researching everything, going down to the policy documents and everything. I'm up to my ears in policy documents, me and Antonia reading this stuff. And so we decided to launch our first piece of work, and it's important, this is the first piece of work, and this is this guide, and it looks at three pieces: the CSRD, which is the reporting directive, the empowering consumers for the Green Transition Directive, we love short names, and the Green Claims Directive. Okay, and Antonia is going to take you through that. What I think is important is a couple of things. What we are aiming to do with this first guide is to start to prepare destinations, DMOs, many of you, for what's happening, okay? We want to provide clear practical guidance with what we know to be true to date. We want to share what we don't know is true, so it helps you do some risk management and start to build some more risk management or risk resilience into your organization. We want to start to develop tools and programs that address and prevent greenwashing, and also avoid greenhushing, and we'll talk about that later, which is a key thing. And we want to see where we can find new opportunities for innovation. So that's what this guide does. It is the first one. This is for DMOs. There will be other products and other guides and other information coming out on events, for supply chain and other things for business. What this guide is not is perfect. As we will discuss more and you'll hear, and I'm sure you're going to start to ask questions, there are so many things that are not clear, not defined. Many of us have different perspectives. There's people on this call I can see who know a lot about this. And so I invite you also to share in the chat later what you know, what you think, and whether you agree or disagree. Some of these things could be interpreted different. But we're going to share what we think we know, and in all our conversations we've had with EU and lawyers and other people. So let's go into this. Let's hand it over now. Antonia, talk us through, as our policy expert, talk us through these three key pieces of policy.
Thank you very much, Guy, and good afternoon, everyone. So let's take a closer look at each of the three directives that the guide covers. Let's start with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. It's basically a directive that requires large companies to disclose information on environmental, social, and governance topics. It builds on the existing non-financial reporting directive, and it's based on a very important principle of double materiality. What this principle is basically that companies need to report both on how the risks sustainability have to their businesses, but they also need to show how their activities impact the people and the planet. It was originally meant for large companies and listed SMEs, but the European Commission has actually earlier on this year limited the scope. What is a large company? It's a company that has more than 1,000 employees, or that has an annual turnover of above 500 million euros, or a total balance sheet of 25 million euros. The directive also foments or recommends SMEs to, if they want, they can voluntarily disclose information, and they've created a very simplified disclosure mechanism for SMEs. So for tourism destinations, this directive doesn't apply totally. You don't fall, most of them, and I think none would fall under the scope, but it does apply to your supply chain. So it's something to keep in mind, and that's why we've included it in the guide. Let's move to the next two directives, Guy.
And I'm just going to ask you a question, because you mentioned some here, the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. They're being updated right now, aren't they, to be trying to be a bit more simpler and a bit more precise? Is that understood?
Yeah, so basically, it's one of the main priorities of the Commission is to simplify and reduce red tape. So that they are being simplified to be more simple. Or they are being changed to be more simple, and they are also they are going to be changed to make it more comparable between member states. So that's actually happening, and there's a stakeholder group that is formalized that is looking into these changes, and we will soon know more about them. Yeah. So the Empowering Consumer for the Green Transition Directive goes hand in hand with the Green Claims Directive, and they are a response to what Guy has mentioned before, and it was the EU 2020 research which found that 40%, so nearly half of the claims that were being made in the EU, were not substantiated with any evidence. So the first directive, the mouthful one, the Empowering Consumer for the Green Transition Directive, actually it applies to companies and to the labels that they use. It wants to protect the consumers from any misguided environmental label. So it bans generic or vague claims, such as the one that Guy showed earlier before. And now labels will have to be based on approved certification schemes or on schemes that are established by public authorities. They need to include objective third-party monitoring, which needs to be compliant with union, national, and international standards. The Commission is actually working on a set of guidelines to see how this should be implemented in the single market, in real life. So we are waiting for those, which will probably happen once we get the Green Claims Directive approved. Now I'll get to this, but this directive should be transposed by member states. So member states need to get this directive and put it into national law by March 2026, and it should enter into force in September of the first year of the same year. So September 2026. So Guy, next slide, please. So the Green Claims Directive, which is like the big elephant in the room, it actually regulates all explicit environmental claims. It's been negotiated now as we speak. So the Commission has made a proposal which, again, is trying to make any claim have scientific evidence. The claims will have to be verified by independent and accredited agents. And the directive also harmonizes the rules for green marketing in the EU. So as I said, this directive is actually being negotiated now by the Council, Parliament, and the Commission, and we will probably have they will probably reach an agreement by the end of this month or next month. One of the key things that the Commission proposes, and it's a fundamental change, is that no compliance with this directive can result in fines of up to 4% of companies' turnover. So it's implementing bans that can have a lot of economic consequences on companies. And as I said, we will see if these bans are agreed later on this month or next month. Guy, I think.
But this is important, right? Because this isn't just travel and tourism. This is everything from cars to phones to pencils, right? This covers every type of product. So this is a monster. So in some ways we're not, we don't have quite as much information as we want and need right now from the Commission. You've got to remember, this is just a monster piece of legislation, so they're going to need time.
Yes.
What else do we know from this? Yeah, Antonia.
Just that's why it's super important, the guidelines that the Commission will probably publish. It's making for the empowering consumer for the green transition, but will probably publish after the Green Claims Directive has reached an agreement. And these guides might be sector specific. We need to wait and see, but that would be very interesting for us.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be more information out. I think what's important, because I see Rachel and other people from around the world, at the moment with the current proposals, this is not just for European businesses. This is for any business that targets a European consumer. So if you're an American business, an Australian business, or a Korean business, and you're tackling and communicating to European consumers, then this affects you. So very similar in how GDPR was launched. Will that, in the final document, will that get changed? We don't know. We know Mr. Trump and his team are battling this furiously in the European Commission and trying to change some of this. But this is what it lays out at the moment in the draft legislation. So what we do know is that this will also have major effects to certification in the legislation that's passed and also in the green claims that was coming. So certification bodies such as Green Destinations or Vireo Earth Check will have to be accredited, and audits in the future will have to be done by a third-party organization. That's quite clear. So for that, and I see Jonas is here from GSTC and others are really stepping up their game. They're becoming accredited. And the rules say that they have to, at the moment, the rules are stating that they need to be kind of accredited by national bodies. So GSTC has been accredited by the Italian national accreditation body. Every country has an accreditation body. So Green Destinations EarthCheck are doing it with the Dutch national accreditation body. Video is doing it there. It is also trying to check the certifications layout is changing as well. In the past, GSTC has been kind of that body creating the kind of the master criteria. But we have other organizations such as TSCA, the Tourism Sustainable Certification Alliance, coming out. We'll have another approach to it. So the market's going to get quite interesting and a lot of changes we're going to see. A lot of this work will actually require certification bodies to do a lot of changes, structural, even company changes. So we may see some certification bodies merge, and we started to see some of that happen. We may see some disappear. And one of almost the unwritten rules of the EU is they're trying to simplify the certification landscape. They want to drive quality, and at the moment there's too many options, they're saying. But there's some other kind of risks here. And so this is kind of just a question really I want to throw you out. And so let's look at some stats. In the GDS index, many of you participate in that. At the moment, we have a really unusual high hotel certification rate. 34.2% of hotels are certified in GDS index participating destinations, which is way beyond the record. And we have many at 70, 80, 90% of destinations. However, the University of Surrey and Xavier Font, when Dr. Font went and looked at Booking.com's data of 82,000 hotels, he saw that only 9.3% were certified. And when he looked at that data, he saw it was the bigger, chains and the middle size upwards that were certifying. Is the SMEs who are not certified. And we know in Europe, 99.5% of tourism businesses, I think it is, are SMEs. So the concern I have, and many of us have, is that the cost of implementing these changes will force the price of certification up, which will make it really difficult for SMEs to participate because of cost and complexity. So I'm concerned that we may see people stop doing that. We may see people stop communicating and start greenwashing. So I'm interested to know how we go into the future and how we start to think about how can this be mitigated. And that obviously means as an industry, we need to start lobbying the European Commission about really good guidance on certification. And many of us are involved in different initiatives around that. So let's kind of just summarize a few things here. So we know the stricter requirements that are coming out for reporting, for validating your claims. We know that with environmental claims, you won't be able to be vague, unqualified in the law. Green, eco-friendly is not allowed. We will see more rise in enforcement actions. We're presenting EU today, but I could present the same presentation and just change the lane and call it C59 and talk about what Canada's doing right now and what will come out later this month in Canada. The UK is doing this. Australia is doing this. This is a global initiative at the moment. And a lot of the new global legislation or new national legislations around the globe is based on this EU legislation. We know there's going to be requirement for third-party verification of reports and statements. So there's a lot happening. It's really interesting. So it is easy to do nothing right now. And we're saying that doing nothing is not an option. Because if you do nothing, there's a risk of being too late. You're a risk of having accusations of greenwashing, a risk of losing your competitive advantage, a risk potentially of fines and legal action. On the opposite, if you're in action, you can start to increase your trust. You can start to attract more eco-conscious visitors, clients, and staff, and you can improve your access to funding. Because definitely in Europe right now and around the world, maybe not in the States, access to funding requires sustainability disclosures and good ones. So it's an interesting time. So as I said, doing nothing is not a strategy. These are just a few points that we're recommending that you should consider. And these are written for a DMO, but they're the same, I think, for any type of business out there. So if you're an agency or a hotel. So one, evaluate. Where are you? What's this risk of legislation to you? This legislation, and we didn't say, is written for businesses. So if you're a public DMO, in theory, this doesn't affect you because it's written for businesses. However, some DMOs are not public entities. They're private public entities. or they're just fully kind of corporates. So that would affect you. The second thing is this legislation are directives, okay? These are directives coming out from the EU that will then drive national legislation. So Spain will go and then interpret it. Each country can make that tougher than what's here. So give me an example of what happened this week. There's a directive around carbon reporting from Europe. But the Spanish government took that directive and required much more exact reporting, not just for public, not for private, but for public and ministries around Spain. And they even included events in that. Events over 1,500 people now have to report on carbon emissions. So that's not in a directive, that's in a national thing. So we're going to see some of this out. So you need to evaluate the legislation of greenwashing risk as it affects you in your country. If you're in multiple countries, it gets more complex. You then have to look at your own claims and status. How well are we doing this? What's our reporting like? Where are we on this journey? Does CSRD affect me? And then you need to start to map. What's my compliance roadmap? What do I need to do when? Who do I need to involve? How do I need to get them ready to work on this? We then suggest you start thinking of your own certification roadmap. So if you're a business, what are you doing on that journey? Have you started? Where are you going? If you're a DMO, we actually also think you need to be helping businesses on this journey. Educate. Maybe educate should actually come first. We need to be raising awareness of this legislation, but also how to tell good stories, how to disclose important information correctly in the best way, and a way that drives behavior change. Let's not forget this. This is about, ultimately, we're trying to change behavior. So let's look at that. Support. If you're a DMO, you have an opportunity to help your businesses go on this journey. So how can you identify and promote funding to support businesses with compliance? And lastly, you need to install a monitoring circle to make sure you're looking at this regularly. We do this with many other areas. There's people on this line who work in the healthcare industry and events. We've had to learn over the years to comply with healthcare regulation from governments. We can do this. It's nothing majorly different. It's just processes and new things we have to adapt to. So this is really where we are today. I'm going to stop there because I'm going to run out of time if not. There's some great questions. We'll come back to those in a second, or shall we look at them now?
Yeah, there are a few questions coming through in the chat, so please do keep those coming. We've probably got time maybe to look at one of those, or two of those maybe, if we're quick.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to pick them randomly. So if a label scheme needs to be created by a national body, do you need to get an accreditation in each country? In the EU, this is an interesting one. So in the EU, if you're accredited by in Italy, that accreditation works across Europe. Interestingly, the EU accreditations are so well regarded that works around the world in most countries. So, for example, EarthCheck are accrediting in Holland, and the Australian bodies will recognise that. But the other way around, the EarthCheck accreditation, if they'd done it through the Australian body, wouldn't be recognised in Europe. So this is good. That kind of thing. William from Greenstep, yeah, we've got C59 comes into effect in 9 days. And yeah, what I love about C59 is the guys in Canada, they've taken, I'd say, all the good bits from the Green Claims and ECGTD and improved it, simplified it, and rolled it out much faster. So there's some really good stuff happening there. And again, watch this space. We're doing some more work on C59 coming out after the summer.
Guy, Wendy has made a really good question, and I think it does illustrate very well the question she makes on what we were describing about, it's the first question that was done in the chat, and I was just writing the response. If we have, so let's say a company uses one organic ingredient in the list of ingredients, but nothing else is organic. What would they be able to claim under these different directives? So if I may, I was just writing the response, and I think it's a very good question to illustrate what we are saying. So What we know now is from the directives, once they are implemented, the claims that any product makes will have to be backed by an independent and accredited agent. So in this case, most likely they won't be able to say that the product is 100% organic or the product is organic. The exact wordings of what the label will say, we still don't know. And I hope that the Commission, with the guidelines that they are doing, will shed a bit of light of what they could say. But my bet is that probably what they'll be able to say is that a certain percentage of the ingredients in this product is organic. And this claim will have to be, again, verified by an independent and accredited agent that in turn is based on international national standards and actually has third-party monitoring. So I think that's important to note.
I'm going to stop it here because I'd love to hear Lisa now talk about actually how an NGO is applying this. And I'm going to come back to some of these questions because there's some really good ones on here too. And some tough ones I need time to think about. So Lisa, I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to stop sharing now. And yeah, take it from here.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll just take my presentation and get started. And thanks for having me here. So I'm going to tell like this NTU point of view, so our perspective and our experience with these very three directives. I will not have all the right answers for you as much as I wish I would have them. So I'm going to tell you as much of what we've been doing, including our struggles on this common path, what we are taking. So first of all, Visit Finland is the national tourism organization for Finland, and we're part of a governmental organization called Business Finland. And I'm actually not going to be talking today about these, like our organizations, and because we also have to comply with these, but that's more like a internal perspective. So instead, I'm going to be focusing more on our national sustainable tourism development program called Sustainable Travel Finland, and also the travel industry in Finland. So how we're helping our industry in preparations for this, for the compliance of these three directives that were just introduced, because these are the very same directives that we've been dealing so much in the past years, and I really wish this guide would have been there available when we got started this. But getting started, so I mentioned that I will be focusing on our national sustainability program because it is a labeling program as well, while it is actually meant to be the educational program for the travel industry in Finland. So it covers both the regional destinations as businesses of any shape and size in Finland. So this program itself have to comply with the directives, but at the same time that the businesses and any tools or anyone within this program, the program is also to help them to comply with the EU regulation. So starting with the first steps, this especially the the so-called Consumer Protection Directive. It requires that any labeling program is transparent and credible. So it means that you have to set out, you have to like have it publicly available, the whole kind of like criteria, the standard that there is. So this was one of the first steps that we needed to take. We had the standard out there, but it was more on like a title kind of level. So then we had to go really deep into this. And why this is a challenge is that because the program is traversed in the digital channel, all the tools are digital. How do you make them publicly available? And for example, with the, let's say, CO2 calculator, do you have to like publish all the emission factors, like how far you have to go? So this is something like a steps that we've been taking, but we're still waiting for the confirmation that whether the kind of like the standard, that if it meets the criteria already. So there is a lot of things that are bubbling under, so they're not like visible yet necessarily in the public, but it's something that our team has been focusing the past month or past years. The step 2 on our national sustainable tourism development program is competence building. So it means building the competence, the sustainability readiness of our industries and destinations. We have something called Visit Finland Academy, which is like a set of workshops. We have STF Guide, which is like self-learning material. Both of these nowadays include like a learning about these regulations. And we have also taken some internal training for Visit Finland and also provided some training for our stakeholder groups, for example, Glasgow Declaration signatories. So we try to make it easy for our businesses and destinations to find the information that is now available in this guide that's been published. The third step in the program is to get certified. So this has really means, because this has enormous impact in the certification, as we just learned. So it has meant that we have really deepened we have already existing collaboration model with the certification, but we have really deepened this kind of like helping each other, helping especially the smallest certifications, you know, like to go through the requirements of the directives. We have a national sustainable tourism indicator system. So in the beginning, we kind of wanted it to be kind of like aligned with the sustainability reporting standards, so that we could be reporting same things in a national level. But then also we needed to have like the consumer protection directive to make sure that basically the data, how it's collected, the data that it's kind of like complying with the directive, that it can be used basically as a proof, because any claims need to be backed with the data. But it comes to the sustainability communication, which is one of the criteria. So again, through our existing channels, we are now providing plenty of information about the communication, that how you can kind of like directive proof your communication. And also we've been doing the same, of course, to our own communication as well, and taking some internal learnings and trainings on that. The step 6 in our program is that the businesses and destinations must have a development and action plan. And these we have been kind of like aligning with the sustainability reporting standard, then also the voluntary standard, then for the smaller ones. And here is really like a big hiccup there, because like we've probably all heard about Omnibus, and that was just discussed, that how many changes there is. This is like this endless roller coaster. So how to kind of like keep up with that to make sure that we indeed are aligning, because sometimes the Commission decides that, you know, this is actually not how the final version will be, and it will look like that. It's not always the easy case then when you are really trying to align and comply with the directives. And then finally, the final steps on the program is to applying for the Sustainable Travel Finland label, and we have a third party doing the auditing already. But because of the directive needs specific kind of monitoring compliance, so we are going to ensure that our auditing process is kind of like meeting the criteria for the monitoring compliance. But then finally, there is also this interesting thing that we still don't know, that are we going to be seen as a public authority, because then the rules are different, or are we going to be seen as a certification scheme? So there are certain steps that we can't at the moment take until the national kind of like a translation, national version is available on the directives, especially when it comes to empowering the consumers. So we kind of like sometimes have to hold and wait until the final decisions are done, until we can go ahead. And this is really led to the fact that we are kind of like taking a little rain check here, because it doesn't matter how deep we are kind of like digging on this on the legislation. We've taken our internal legal advisor on board. We are discussing with our ministries and the Ministry of Justice on this. But it really seems sometimes that no one really knows that which the direction we know, but because the final decisions are there, sometimes at the moment really a little bit feels like we're taking a little breather here. Very soon there will be more information, there will be concrete decisions. We can still do some lobbying to make sure that the impact is not adverse to our industry, but we'll see how it goes. And I think Guy very wisely mentioned the GDPR. When that came, we were really thinking that the impacts will be so enormous for our industry that how we ever going to deal with that. But here we are today. We are not really even thinking about that GDPR rules anymore, because we have all the processes in place so that we can comply with the GDPR rules. So I think that will be with these directives as well, but it'll take some more couple of years. And therefore, I'm really happy that the guide is here that you have just launched. So my congratulations on that. That will make us all wiser and more prepared for what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I think that's wonderful. And what I love to do, you guys have demonstrated what we're proclaiming for. You've got into action. You've done lots of things. You've done your research. You're talking to the people. You're working out what it means for you in your country, in your state. You've built the connections. As you said, you don't know all the answers. No one knows all the answers, but you've already built the kind of stakeholder network. So when the answers come out, you'll be very fast at implementing it. And you've already started to prepare and change other things that get you ready for it. I think it's a great example, and I don't think we could have picked anyone better. So thank you, Lisa, for sharing that. And I'm sure we're going to learn a lot on this journey. I'm going to ask if anyone's got any questions, because there's a lot of questions. Maybe I'm going to come back. I've been trying to scribble quickly to answer some of these, probably badly. But if you fire away, if you need to what's saying. So I guess we're expecting greater clarity after the summer on a lot of this. Some of this will come out more next year too, but there's going to be progressive releases of information. So we're expecting something in about the September, October time, clarifying a lot of this. We'll see more detail coming out next year. And we're starting to see some legislation come out on a national level of ECGTD that will start coming out, and Green Claims will come out much later. So some things will come out. There's going to be a lot more sector initiatives that will come out to claim and define things. You're going to see more of that. What else? Someone asked about the GDS position. It's an interesting one. We do not run a certification. We're not claiming to be a certification. So we run a performance improvement program. So we always existed to try and drive and accelerate progress towards certification. And I'm really happy that many of our destinations, Zurich, Dublin, Copenhagen, etc., have achieved certification that are accredited by GSTC. So we're really happy about that, and we want to carry on doing that. However, we've seen that there is an opportunity and a need, because at the moment, people start with the GDS index, they get ready, and then we say, look, you're ready for certification now, and you have to start again. So you're starting from scratch, and you put all that data into another system, and you start again, which is a waste of time, a waste of money, and you're having to invest in another certification program. We see there's a different way of doing that, and a very simple way where we can optimize our systems and our team to help destinations get ready for accreditation, for certification. And so we will be partnering with a third-party verifier, and we will be changing our systems and our processes to take DMOs on a journey. And when we're happy and we've done all the internal audits and we think everyone's ready for verification, we'll be bringing in a third-party verifier to do that. At the moment, as I said, that we will launch with GSTC. There are other systems coming out, such as TSCA. We may look at those. We're not making any promises about that. We aim to be kind of industry neutral on this point and kind of work with the solutions that help our destinations to the maximum. Yeah, so expect more about that after the summer. We're working on that and be able to launch that later. So again, the goal is to save time, save money, and drive progress, which is really what we're about, impact. Anything else? Oh, yeah. I mean, we haven't even talked about that, but massive work coming out from California in terms of carbon reporting. Rachel, you have to tell me more about that. It's one thing I actually do not know too much about it. But again, even in the States, a lot of companies over 1 billion at the moment will require to report. So change is happening globally all around the world. Any other questions coming out from here? There was a question around different ISOs. Remember, and Jonas touched on this in a question, is there's two types of elements in the certification world. There's the standards owners, and then there's the certification bodies who have to assess compliance to that standard. They will have to be separate and independent. There's ISO standards. There's a standard for everything, right? So there's an ISO standard for how you create a standard. There's this ISO standard for how you verify a standard. And so those will become even more important. And that's what national bodies are accrediting to, amongst other things. Good.
Hi, I have a question for Lisa, if no one else is
Yeah, go on.
asking a question, if I can. And it's about how you managed to convince stakeholders in decision making, because at one point in your presentation, you were saying how many times you were doing legislation, but didn't know there were gray aspects, gray areas, but you were going on that direction or in that direction, going towards the legislation, even though there was this gray area. So I was just wondering, how did you manage? Because I find that to be really hard. So it's not on hard policy details, but just on the process. How did that?
Yeah, good question. Thanks. So basically, our approach usually always is that we build on something existing that works. So we already had the Sustainable Travel Finland program before this directive became the big talk. We knew that there will be directives, but we didn't know exactly like how they will be. And the whole kind of like birth of the program was that let's get our industry ready for whatever will come. Then the directives were there, and we were like, okay, well, this wasn't exactly what we were expecting. But then we were using it because the program has already become the industry norm, and there is this trust from the stakeholder is that, you know, that we are a national body, so we will comply with whatever the direction will be. So then I think that the message is more like a stay on board, that because if you stay on board, we will make sure that you will comply with these directives. Because naturally, as a national authority, we don't only have to comply with the Finnish law, we have to go beyond that when it comes to sustainability. So it's the bare minimum. So it's been with some other directives before as well, you know, that we need to change the criteria and the standard now and then. But before we're there, like now with the directives, we are not like fully there, but then we already start doing the educational part, so that when the directives are finally there, we are kind of like prepared for that. So
Yeah.
that's maybe made it easier to have the stakeholders on board with you, but it doesn't mean that it's just fully smooth ride, because there is so much this uncertainty, and we are never at ease when there is uncertainty in life. So
yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's important what you just said is that this is not the first time this type of thing has happened, right? We saw this when the waste directive came out, and we've had to get rid of our polystyrene trays and cups out of events. You know, these are things that happen. It's just a lot is happening quite quickly and quite intense, and it's big. It's bigger than some of the other things, but the process is no different than we've done kind of naturally anyway. So I guess, as we said, get into action, follow this through, and keep educating yourself, because there's going to be a lot more information out there.
I think clearly this is an important topic for many of you, and there's still a lot of questions outstanding. So we will make sure and we'll do our best to get back to those. But I would like to hand over to Ramona. I would be really looking forward to hearing from what the European Commission is working on with regards to supporting sustainable tourism, and obviously in line with some of this legislation. Ramona, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having me. I will disappoint you without, I suppose you would expect, of course, here is European Commission, will have more answers about the legislation. Today, I will step a little bit back and I will explain to you what we are working on, so about the new strategy and a few projects that are still open and are helping destinations and businesses in terms of sustainability. But I was very happy to listen to this discussion, and I followed the questions in the chat that are all very pertinent and very good. I'm afraid that at this moment we cannot say much more because, as Guy and Antonia said, the co-legislators are still deciding and finalizing the European Green Claims Directive. But rest assured that simplification and the burden for SMEs and micro enterprises are always in the mind of European Commission when we are in the trilogues. At the same time, we have to strike this right balance between the expectations and the right for the consumer to know what is sustainable, and also for the businesses that are going into the path of the sustainability and doing it correctly, that their business model is confirmed and that they are seen and that they can continue. But I hear also the concerns of the greenwashing, that the whole process towards sustainability, some of us are going step by step. Really, this is not a thing that happens overnight, that this is being halted. And this should not be the case. While we can understand, of course, there is a lot of unknown in terms of legislation coming, how it will be implemented, and it will take time, of course. That's the directive takes time to be transposed. So a lot of questions, but rest assured that we hear them. Guidelines will come once the directive is adopted, hopefully by the end of this month or early next month. So it's coming. But in the meantime, I would really like to encourage you, please continue in your steps of sustainability. Many destinations have done a lot of good job, so do not stop there. I'm here again to explain a little bit what is coming up, because as most of you probably know, and maybe some of you that are not from the EU, some destinations that join us today, we are preparing a new strategy for sustainable tourism. It's not new in the sense that we have done a lot of work together with the stakeholders, destinations, businesses, academia, also NGOs, creating our shared goals and implementing them. And that was done, if you haven't heard, so it's through the Transition Pathway for Tourism and Tourism Agenda, which is member states, let's say, political endorsement. So based on everything we have achieved, what we are doing now, we're launching a reflection period together with all the stakeholders. So it means we are consulting tourism stakeholders on how we should go ahead in Europe towards a sustainable, resilient, and competitive ecosystem. So we have just launched a consultation. In the next slide, please. You will see a QR code where you can access the survey with a very detailed, really questions that I'm sure each of you will find something to say. And if you don't, there is a space to express your ideas, your suggestions, what is important for you, and above all, what you think EU could do better to support more sustainable and digitally fit and in all the senses, let's say, resilient tourism for the coming years. So I would encourage you really to have a look, have your say. We have time until mid-August. In parallel, we'll be launching a public open consultation that is really for everyone, because everybody's a tourist and everybody has something to say. That will be open also for 3 months. So what we will do, of course, we will analyze all the inputs received. We are also talking to stakeholders through many events that will still be coming also in autumn. So all this will be fed into our strategy, our shared strategy, which we intend to publish in the first quarter next year. So this is where we are. Again, not starting from scratch. We have done a lot. And by the way, if you have been following the pledges that we've been receiving from our stakeholders to tourism pathway, there the biggest share is seen really for the green transition. So the businesses have been investing a lot and have been pledging to do more in the area of green transition. And in the next slide, please. So what areas are we consulting? Basically everything. You see sustainability is there. And actually it's a cross-cutting topic. It's not that sustainability is a pillar, you know, separate from other things. Sustainability, the way we see it, it's about climate action. So European Green Deal objectives have not disappeared. We have to mitigate still our impacts on environment, and we have to adapt to the climate change, which is inevitable. We are also talking about social sustainability. So tourism that is ensuring that working conditions for people in tourism are fair and that tourism is accessible for all. We are talking about host communities more and more because we also hear the voice of discontent in some ways, in some destinations where we see tourism that is not balanced, that is affecting communities, but also, on the other hand, there are destinations that are looking for ways to attract tourism. So when we talk about balanced tourism, we talk about different perspectives there in terms of territory, seasonality, but also we don't forget the destinations that are really trying to invest into sustainable tourism and attract more tourism. So this is, again, a European perspective. We talk also about regenerative tourism. We hear our partners and stakeholders that want to go a step ahead. So we're really looking forward to your input, how that could be done, where we could have a focus, again, at European level to support you. And, you know, everything that lies as at the bottom line, let's say, to reinforce and to enable sustainability. So we're talking about skills, we're talking about data, digital capacity, we're talking about governance. In the end of the day, we have to make sure that sustainability is a competitive advantage. And I think EU as a destination has been, and we want to make it to make sure that it will continue this way, always a quality and sustainable a destination. And ETC, by the way, is our partner there to help us in the promotion campaigns and to make sure that we communicate Europe as sustainable and discovering also, you know, other destinations that are less known. So this is where we are. In the next slide, maybe. But as I said, we haven't started just now. So for years, EU has been and Commission supporting destinations in their sustainability path in multiple ways. So we have been building capacity. We have been offering more and more peer-to-peer exchanges. There are projects for that. I will share those with you. We have created a dialogue for the destinations. There is a forum, for example, among the Together for Tourism expert group. They're doing quite interesting work for destinations. We have been talking very recently, by the way, about unbalanced tourism. We had a webinar. These experts are preparing paper for us as a commission to help us really map how we can support the destinations in this regard. And in general, we're talking about management of sustainable destinations and regenerative tourism. So this forum will continue much stronger, I think, in the coming months and years. We are supporting destinations in their statistical framework. So we have supported, for example, 7 member states that wanted to have more, let's say, technical capacity and advice and some reforms and some insights in research through the so-called tourism flagship and a technical support instrument. So that's one thing. You know that we are working on sustainability indicators, and member states and regions, they're sitting together with Eurostat, our statistical body in the Commission, and seeing how we can revise the European statistical regulation. And we're promoting our shared brand Europe together with EDC, as I mentioned, for sustainable, inclusive and safe destination, which is also very important. And research, surveys and trends and travel sentiments. So all these things are supporting destinations. Conscious of time, I'm moving on to the next slide, please. So I'm sharing just a few projects that I think would be interesting for those who know. Apologies for repeating myself, but maybe some of you still don't know, and I invite you to have a look. One of those projects is Sustainable EU destinations, supporting destinations through mapping concrete challenges and solutions. And we put these destinations together. There are a series of webinars. So you have a QR code here to download already a compilation of the good practices, which is very user-friendly, identifying success, let's say key to success of these destinations and advice, etc. So I would invite you to have a look at this guide. And in the next slide, please. We have also some webinars, some discussions around these challenges and around these topics, and everybody's invited. So there are still a couple of them coming this month. Please register. I hope they will be useful for you. And the other workshops are available or will be available very soon in the same page for you to listen. So I think that will be quite an interesting reflection also. The topics that are interesting for everyone. In the next slide, please. You can go on. Yes, I mentioned a forum on unbalanced tourism at destinations. I explained a little bit what is unbalanced for us. So it's not just over tourism, and we would like really to also make sure that the positive power on tourism is heard. That, you know, the way sometimes media portrays a very negative perspective of tourism is not always true. And, you know, sometimes it's not even a destination, it's an attraction that is suffering from mass tourism. So we started this dialogue, and we had a very interesting discussion at the end of the month on the 27th of May. You can have a look, and I think there is a recording available already about this topic. There is research from a joint research center, so it's our commission researchers. They publish some articles and insights based on the data they gather, also some alternative data. So I invite you to join this forum and have a look on what we've been doing. In the next slide, please. Yes, data is very important, and we do have a big project, D3 Hub Competence Center, that I wanted to share with you. Have a look again at the page. No time to discuss it in detail here, but it's very important for destinations, and quite interesting work is happening there to support sustainable and balanced data-driven decisions for destinations. In the next slide, please. Sustainable and innovative urban destinations. For cities, there's a lot of work. To start with, we have a partnership that is a bottom-up approach for the cities that are working on an action plan with very specific actions, gathering, again, good practice and proposing some solutions at the EU level. So we're really looking forward to see that finalized and happening. We have a lot of innovative actions that Commission is supporting in the cities. There is also a very interesting initiative, the Commission, that helps putting the urban destinations together, again, according to the challenges and the solutions they have. So a very practical approach. If you are a city, are looking how to solve a particular challenge, have a look in urban matching tools that we have. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So we do have the gateway for urban learning, that is Portico. So it's really like a one-stop shop for the cities as destinations. And this is the tool, city-to-city exchanges for the matchmaking that is very, very helpful. Next one, please. Yes, this probably you have heard. If you haven't, I invite you again, have a look. The Commission is supporting already for some years smart tourism capitals and sustainable, or what we call green pioneer of smart tourism. So smaller destinations and bigger cities. We do that in terms of giving them promotion support, communication support, so to make their efforts more visible, and that is being really appreciated. And I particularly like that this is helping smaller destinations. For the capital, sometimes it seems obvious, not always, but for the smaller destinations in particular important. And we also have a collection of good practice that you can see from these winner cities and destinations, and you will find. And well, this is an annual exercise, and 2026 is already closed. The jury will be evaluating the winners, so watch out the space for that. In the next slide, please. Yes, the famous funding guide. Well, it's not a miracle solution. We do have a complicated situation because we don't have one single budget line, one single fund for tourism in Europe, and most of you know, those that are EU destinations. What we do have is a guide, an interactive guide, where we try to, where you can identify yourself if you're a business or even a researcher or a public organization, what kind of support you're looking for. And that gives you ideas, a list of programs, EU programs and funds that can help you there with concrete examples, and it links to that fund. What we are doing in addition to this guide is a project to support SMEs in their efforts in finding the support in the EU funds. And I think this will be even more pragmatic approach, in the sense that we will be preparing really tools for them to be more agile in finding the solution, what things are working, really good practice, how to prepare a good application, etc. So we hope this will be really helpful for, especially for the smaller businesses again. And the next slide, please. Yeah, this is the project I was speaking about. It will, of course, result as everything and all the projects we do are accessible for everybody. So you will be able to access the compendium, for example, of best practices, the manual of don'ts and do's, etc., etc. The next slide, please. This is our one-stop shop EU tourism platform, where we put together all that could be interesting for tourism community, for our ecosystem. And this is something that is building also thanks to the stakeholders. So which means you can connect and share your content, your studies, your events, look for the like-minded partners. It's really a place where we try to put everything, and this is really a big challenge because, it's very heterogeneous sector, everything that might be interesting for you. It works a little bit like a Facebook, if I can make a joke, because you can make your profile according to the needs and interest that you think are important for you, and then you will receive filtered information, and there are newsletters coming in, etc., etc. So I think this is a good start. Again, it's a project that we started quite recently, so it's not perfect, but it's growing every day, and I invite you to explore it and be part of it. And that's all from me. I hope it was useful. It's not everything. I didn't mention all the tools and projects we do. We also have, of course, EU eco-label for accommodations. That's about sustainability, and the regulation criteria will be revised. We are developing a project, the so-called PEF method, that links a bit to the Green Claims Directive. So to help also hotels in measuring the environmental footprint on the method that is very solid and has been tested for other products. So that's all from me. I can take a few questions if there are any. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ramona. Thank you for that. There's obviously a lot of advice, support, and everything out there. We will share the presentation so people can look at all of that information in peace. And also, of course, everybody, if you have time, please submit your thoughts on the EU strategy for sustainable tourism. Thank you to all the speakers, Theodora as well, and Antonia. And I will hand over to Guy to wrap up.
We have a couple of things that will help with this. As I said before, we were coming out with this guidebook, and it will be updated as we get more information. There'll be other tools and more specific guidebooks coming out into the future. We have a storytelling masterclass that takes a lot of the key elements and turns it into more practical usage. How do you tell stories and disclose in the right way? I think, I'm not sure if anyone from Ireland's here, but the Ireland team from Fáilte Island were on this course today in the last few days. So this is a brilliant, fun course if you like to tell stories and do it in a better way. I recommend this to you guys. We also have our next version of our certificate coming out in September. This is, your master's class in regenerative destination management. If that's your thing, this is an unbelievable kind of 4-month journey into regenerations. This is one of my most favorite things we do because it's slow, detailed learning, and you really get to build a fantastic network with a group of senior people. So invite you to those. Watch this space. For those of you who've been indexing, congratulations for the hard work. We'll be looking forward to release the answers in September, end of September, beginning of October on that. You'll hear more about that soon. And thanks to everyone for turning up. It's been a real pleasure to welcome you. Thanks to Lisa, to Theodora, and to Ramona, who was here yesterday from the EU as well. So thank you very much.